Um, I, Elliot Richards, hereafter known as the Damned. The Damned?
How about the Dawn? Sound better?
In the 2000 comedy movie Bedazzled, the meek Elliot Richards, played by Brendan Fraser, is seduced into signing a contract with the devil, played by the agelessly beautiful Elizabeth Hurley, to sell his soul in exchange for 7 wishes. And even if courts allowed somebody to sell their soul to the devil, there were a lot of problems with this contract that could have let Elliot Richards get out of it without having to sacrifice that last wish or give up his soul. The question is, how could he have done that, and what remedies were available to him? Today we are going to be looking at Bedazzled, its contract, what flaws it had, and what options Elliot Richards had to keep his soul and stave off eternal damnation. A few housekeeping notes before we get into the analysis. Just like in my Little Mermaid video, we are going to be assuming that a US court would govern this sort of contract, and that they would even allow for a person to sell their soul to anybody, let alone the devil. There are a lot of underlying contracts, like whether a soul is real, whether the devil exists. For purposes of this video, we're going to assume that all of that is legit.
Who are you?
Promise not to tell anyone?
Okay.
Cross your heart and hope to die?
Yeah.
I'm the devil.
Okay.
And if we assume that a court would uphold this type of contract, then the basic elements of offer and acceptance plus consideration are met. The devil offers Elliot a contract that he is able to agree to and sign. Elliot is giving up his soul in exchange for 7 wishes that will presumably allow him to pursue the beautiful Allison. However, as we explored last time, just because a contract is formed does not mean it is enforceable, and in fact there are a few things that happen in the formation of this contract that lead me to believe that it was not valid. First of all, the contract is based on a misrepresentation. The devil does not explain, or at least does not make it evident to Elliot, that the wishes will not grant him exactly what he wants, or that he needs to be incredibly specific in order to get what he wants. In fact, the wishes that Elliot gets are self-sabotaging. It's actually very reminiscent of the classic English short story, The Monkey's Paw, where the holder of the monkey's paw can wish for something and they'll get what they ask for, but with it will come dire consequences. The difference is here that Elliot is giving up his soul to the devil for these wishes, and presumably if these wishes didn't accomplish his goal, which is to woo Allison, which the devil knows is his purpose for these wishes, that he would not have agreed to this contract if he had the full understanding of what the wishes would entail. And I know people are going to say, well, it's in the contract that he signed, but that's the second problem. The contract is drafted to be unnecessarily vague, and I would say even to be duplicitous to Elliot. The contract is like 1,000 pages, it's a thick stack, and the text on the contract gets smaller and smaller, so he can't even read it. These are practices that courts would consider to be fraudulent and misleading. Just because it says something in the text of a contract, if the contract is written in a way that no reasonable person would be able to ascertain what is in it, that portion of the contract or the contract itself just becomes unenforceable. So if this contract was induced by fraud, both on the part of the devil's representations to Elliot and the contract itself, how can Elliot get out of it?
What's the big deal? Have you ever seen your soul? Do you even know what it is?
Of course, it's the thing that no, it floats around.
Well, there is a remedy known as rescission, which is essentially to basically cancel the contract, which would be available to Elliot in this case. Now, rescission is typically available only in cases where the other party fails to materially uphold their obligations under the contract, but I think that Elliot would be able to make that case. Like I said, the purpose of him entering into this contract was for him to have an opportunity to woo Allison. At every opportunity, the wishes that he received that were being exchanged for his soul didn't do that. He wishes to be married to Allison, but they're not in love. Then he wishes to be a sensitive individual who can woo Allison, but he's too sensitive. He wishes to be a tough basketball player, but he's dumb and physically lacking in some areas. The list goes on, but it's a pretty easy argument to make that the contract was materially breached by the devil by not giving him the 7 wishes that he would have reasonably expected to get. And what's more, even if the devil claimed that, she gave him the wishes that he asked for by letter of what he said, there's still this issue that he didn't actually get 7 wishes. If you remember, at the very beginning, before he signed the contract, she tells him, wish for anything and I'll give it to you, and he wishes for a cheeseburger and a large Coke, and she drives him there and makes him pay for it. That would not constitute a wish, as Elliot himself said.
This doesn't prove anything. I could have done this myself. I even had to pay for it.
Well, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Didn't everyone ever tell you that?
I didn't even get any fries.
Not only that, but this wish came before he had even signed the contract. It can't possibly count because he had no understanding at that time that the 7 wishes included a wish that he could have already made. He is entitled to 7 wishes from the time he signs this contract. So rescission is definitely a remedy that is available to Elliot. He could ask the court to rescind the contract so that it never happened. He does not have to give up his soul. And since Elliot always got out of the wishes, returning things to normal, it's not like the devil has to get anything back from him.
I am the devil. Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub, the Prince of Darkness. Well, the Princess of Darkness, anyway.
Now, a second remedy that might be available to Elliot when the devil breaches this contract is specific performance. Now, this is a legal remedy that requires one party to fulfill their obligations under the contract, so in this case, it would force the devil to grant Elliot's wishes in line with his expectations. Now, the problem is that specific performance is often not available, and it's often not used to compel people to provide services that they could otherwise get. Usually the remedy in a situation where one party fails to perform a service is either rescission or damages, which we'll talk about in a second. Specific performance would be available in an instance where one of the parties is offering a service that no other party could possibly offer. Like if you had commissioned a painting from a certain famous painter, you could make the argument that financial restitution is not financially possible because you are trying to sell or display a famous work of art from a known artist. And I think you can make that case about the devil here. Who else has the ability to grant 7 wishes in exchange for one soul? Maybe there is another demon or there's a genie who could do it, but it would actually be on the devil to prove that there's another avenue for Elliot to get these 7 wishes granted if he still wanted them. Again, rescission would still be a readily available remedy for him. But could he get specific performance if he wanted those 7 wishes granted? Absolutely. I think if the court had the ability to compel the devil to grant wishes to somebody and in the way that they wanted them, yes, this would be a remedy that is available to him.
Out of there, you silly boy!
Oh, man, you are so bad!
And finally, the other remedy that would be available to Elliot based on the breach of this contract would be monetary damages. This one is very simple to explain. When one party breaches the terms of contract, the other party may be awarded financial compensation to account for any losses they may have incurred, either directly from the breach of the contract or any reasonable downstream losses that they might have occurred that the breaching party should have known was a possibility. In this case, that's kind of unlikely given that every time Elliot gets out of a wish, he sort of resets reality, so there's no real loss to him by these wishes not being fulfilled. He hasn't lost his job, his apartment, he hasn't lost any material possessions or lost on any business ventures, so financial damages are probably not going to be an adequate solution in this case. But if that had been the case and he had wished, say, to be wealthy forever and then quit his job on the assurance that the wish would be granted, then he could be entitled to financial damages. But in this case, financial damages seem less likely a remedy than rescission or specific performance.
Nobody ever reads the contract. Article 147, paragraph 9, subsection 3, selfless acts of redemption. Huh? Basically, it says, if you commit one truly benevolent act, it voids the contract.
So I gotta keep my soul?
Yes, you get to keep your soul.
Yes! Oh, yes! Yes! I get to keep my soul! Wow!
In conclusion, it looks like there are several remedies that are available to Elliot if the devil breached her contract in Bedazzled, which it seems very obvious that she did. These remedies are most likely rescission of the contract and specific performance, but damages could be an option also if he had suffered any actual economic loss. But if you have another idea or you think there's something I missed, be sure to let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next week for another fictional contract breakdown.